I sucked at basketball. I sucked at soccer, like all the sports. I didn't even have a future. And the time I tried to convince my parents to buy me my first pair of climbing shoes, I remember my dad told me like, no, we're not spending any more money on you because like you try a sport for 6 months, then you drop it off, then you try another sport and you make us buy new clothes, new gear, and it's gonna happen the same with climbing. And my mom was the only one that believed that I was gonna be a climber, you know? The bond and the love we had, my mom and I, it was really strong. Like she always supported me on this path of becoming a professional rock climber. Like she I don't know why, but she was the only one that knew that I was gonna make it. Like my siblings and my dad were like, ah, no, you should like just commit to the engineering and work for a company and just have a safe income, monthly check. And my mom was the only one that will support any crazy dream that I had, you know?
Louis, welcome to our podcast. We're very happy to have you. Louis, tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do.
Thanks for the invitation, amigos. My name is Luis Cajero. Um, I'm a Mexican. I was born in a state called San Luis Potosi. Basically, I will say that I'm a rock climber. Try to be a mentor for like new and intermediate climbers, and that's the outlet I have found in my life where I can make an impact in people, you know, through climbing, but mostly through mentorship. And regarding myself, I've been a professional climber now for 24 years. So originally I'm a mechanical engineer, but I only worked for the industry for 3 years and then I quit. So probably we'll just go deeper into that story a little bit later. So that's basically me. I don't know what else to say. I'm 41 years old, uh, an athlete, an engineer, a mentor. So a mix of everything, you know?
Yeah, so Louis, we've sort of been friends. We've been Instagram friends for a couple of years now, I think, maybe 2 or 3 years, and so we've talked in the past. First of all, as I said the first time that you told us how old you are, the water is very good where you live because it's keeping you preserved. You're a young looking 41. Um, so your journey into climbing was like it's a really great story, and it's something that changed your life in a deeply profound way, and that's I think that's part of your mission is to sort of share that experience with other people that you help, right?
Yes, exactly. I have this brand called the Secret Brush Society, which is a collective that several, I will say, sponsors, Mexican and Americans, American sponsors support this brand and this collective. And it's basically a training method that I developed over the years, but it's mostly, I will say, a mentorship program. Um, I mix a little bit of my life vision and goals there, my philosophy. I use climbing as the medium to get into people, but basically I want to make changes like in the world, even though it sounds uh, corny or ridiculous. It's my small, I will say, part or job in the world to do just through climbing, you know. I used to be as I said before, I used to be an engineer, and I say I used to be because I don't work as an engineer anymore. But I just realized back then, almost 15 years ago, that I wasn't doing any change in the world, you know? I wasn't creating an impact. And now through this brand, the Secret Brush Society, I'm able to improve people's lives, you know, through climbing and mentorship.
Yeah, and so you originally started climbing. You just sort of did it one day, right?
Yeah, I will say I was really hooked with basketball at the beginning. But then when I got into high school, I went to do the trials to see if I could get it, if I could make it, sorry, into the team, into the basketball team. But I was too short, so I couldn't pass the initial test that lasted a week. So basically, I failed in basketball. So then I started this, say, kind of lost path of like looking for a sport, and I got into soccer, but I was always in the bench. Like I was never playing. Like I will train 5 days a week, and I was always sitting in the bench. Like I wouldn't go into any of the games. So I got sick of soccer, and one day at the beginning of a high school semester, like I had to choose a sport, and I just looked for the sport that had the least amount of hours per day, uh, the least amount of days per week, and there it was, rock climbing, twice a week, 2 hours total. So I was like, yeah, I'll do this. I don't even know what it is. I'll just do something physical and sounds interesting. I had no idea at the moment what rock climbing was about. So I just signed up at the beginning of the semester. I was 17 years old, and I hated it the first day. I was like, I suck at this. I'm not even good at this. So it was like failure after failure. And the second class on that same week, like this guy that became one of my best friends, like he came to me and he's like, no, you have to do this and like transfer the weight to your feet, like don't rely on the arms completely. And he just gave me like a few hints, a few tips. And I remember that day I made it to the top of the wall, which was a really small wall, maybe like 25, 27 feet tall, just vertical, huge holes, artificial holes on it. And by the moment I got to the top of that wall, I just clearly remember that something switched in my brain. And I knew it sounds weird, but I just knew that I was gonna do it for the rest of my life. This is the kind of things that sometimes make me think that it's either God, destiny, or both that that just take us like in weird paths and ways of life to you get to that point where you're supposed to be. I just knew it when I reached that top of that really small wall. Like I knew that it was gonna be something that I will do for the rest of my life. It's weird to explain. I just knew it. And I wasn't even looking for it. That's a weird thing. I like this story a lot. Since that day, I just became hooked. Like I was climbing 5, 6 days a week, and it's been mostly like that for 24 years. Um, so yeah, uh, I guess I found my call in life. My purpose. I will say.
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling to have. I know that we see a lot of followers at GFDA who you can tell sometimes they just come out and say it, but you can tell a lot of people are looking for their purpose, and that's part of everybody's life, I suppose. But it's I think that a lot of the things that we do in life almost have like a symbolic aspect to them. And for you, it was like you climbed to the top of that wall and that's symbolic of sort of emerging out of a life where you were kind of asleep and into a life where you really started paying attention to something. And it started small, but as time passed, more and more exposure, more and more challenges, and you really began to discover yourself through that process.
Yes, exactly. And I will also like to point out that my background before climbing, it was sports that were played in teams. So I always felt frustrated every time we lost or someone did something wrong that affected the result of the whole team. It just really frustrated me, that it wasn't in my hands. Um, I will say that also part of my personal traits are I like to be independent in different ways. So I never felt really attached or passionate about playing in teams, you know. It sounds selfish, but through climbing, at that moment when I hit that top of the wall, or when I reached that top of the wall, I knew that for the first time in my life, something was completely on my hands, like literally in my hands, in my fingers, and that it was dependent only on me, that I couldn't blame anyone else for losing or for not winning. I just knew that it was something very personal, you know, and I love that feeling. It's what really, you know, keeps me hungry to like try to accomplish more things in life through climbing. They all depend on me. At the end of the day, it's a personal effort. It's a personal work. It's really, really inner, not only physical, but inner work, you know, like to work through your insecurities, your fears, your thoughts. So that's what I love about climbing. And I just believe that it helps me reach my greatest potential. I don't know if I'll reach it in this life, but I just know it keeps me in that direction to reach my greatest potential, you know, as a human being, not as an athlete, more as a human being, I believe.
Yeah, it's a very honest experience climbing. I mean, you get out every single thing that you put into it. It's literally your strength is tested at every single moment. And when you fail, failure is very obvious. There's no interpretation
Yes.
of failure when you're climbing. And so it's very much it's very much a little bit of a personal transformation almost every single time, because you have you have to take very specific steps and really call on something deep inside of you to make success where you failed over and over again when you're doing that.
Yes. Yes, exactly. uh, Regarding failure, you just made me think. I remember I got to know rock climbing in August of 1999. I clearly remember that semester, and I did climbing for several years. But I knew deep in my heart that I wanted to devote my life to it. But my parents will tell me that there was no way back then to make a living out of it, and they were kind of right. It's even hard now to make a living out of climbing. It's not like other like big sports like soccer, baseball, you know, football. So yeah, it's hard to make a living out of it. But I had this like big fear in me of failure, because my family will tell me like, no, you cannot devote yourself to climbing the rest of your life. Like you have to go to college, you have to have a degree. Uh, that's the only way you learn money in life. So I just stood in that path and just kept on it for a while, because I was really scared of failing at this, or sounds ridiculous, but following my heart and my passion. So I just like stood there for, I don't know, from 1999 till 2012. Like it took me at least 13, 14 years to make this leap. Because I was really afraid of failure, you know, even though I was dealing with failure, climbing failure all the time and frustration, I was really scared of failing in life, you know, by devoting myself to be a rock climber. So it took me a whole process of 14 years. It's not like I found it like that first day where when I reached the top of the wall. It's not like complete. I won't say. Uh, I didn't get a complete certainty. Is that the word?
Yeah.
That I was gonna be successful in life, and it took me 14 years to get to the point of being tired of being locked in an office, like from 9 to 5 every day, driving 2 hours to get to work. It took me 14 years to gather this courage to make the decision to just like go for climbing. Like, okay, I cannot fool myself. This is my path, you know? Like if it's a failure, then I'll know it in the future. So So far, it hasn't been a failure, but it has. I've had a lot of up and downs over these 11 years of devoting myself completely to rock climbing professionally, I will say. So yeah, I still have to deal with failure all the time, you know. It's not an easy way to make a living, to be honest. Even though I will say I am a professional climber, like I don't get paid to do it. Like I have to make my money through my brand, through my collective, through my students. So it's not easy. I will be lying if I told you that it's easy now that I find my purpose and passion. It's not easy, to be honest.
Yeah, it's well, you said a lot of important stuff there, but one of the things that I want to sort of call out of that is the idea that of that 14 years. Again, particularly when people are young, and these days, like there's the whole hustle culture aspect where everybody who's kind of excited about a hustle culture and entrepreneurialism, they know they're ready to go in and like do something and find their thing. But a lot of times I think people just sort of see the end result of it and they don't, you can't know how hard it is in the middle until you've gone through it. And if you found something in your life that is your true passion, which is it's an incredible thing, like, I've found that too in my life. And I think I'm lucky. I know you probably feel very lucky that you had that moment where you saw something you really loved in your heart. That is, that is a rare thing. And it is an amazing feeling whenever you get to it. But you got to understand that that's not the path. The path is hard and it doesn't matter what you're going to do in life. That path is going to be a hard thing. And in fact, there's a reason why most people will not answer the call to their passions because there's not going to be a direct reward. There's not going to be a one-to-one correlation between I went out and did something today and then I got the paycheck or the security or the fulfillment. Like it doesn't work that way at all. And so 14 years that is a long time to live with something and to sort of wrestle with it and to feel it in your heart before you were able to make a decision. And people, I think if you're a younger person and you're questioning these things, you need to be prepared to wrestle with something for a long time, possibly.
Yes, yes. Um, I don't know how much time it takes people, you know, once they have that gut feeling to have found they are truly passionate about. I don't know how much time it takes people to make that leap, that decision. In my case, I will say that it was mostly influenced. Is that the word? Influenced by my parents.
Influenced? Yes.
Uh, Influenced. So thanks for that. It was influenced by my parents because they had certain expectations of me and my siblings. Like they worked really hard for us to get one of the best colleges in the whole country, you know, for me and my two siblings. So they worked really hard for them. It was like their gift to us, like to get the best education Mexico or the country had to offer. So I'm really grateful for that. And mostly I was just living based on the expectations that my parents had of me, you know, and whatever they wanted for my future. So I just took that path. I graduated from college with excellent results, with honors. We call it here in Mexico. Once you graduate with a really, really high like score through college, they call it to graduate with honors. I don't know what will be the translation in English. So that's basically something I had the expectation from my parents. So I accomplished that. And then after that, I just took a 2 year like backpacking trip to clear my mind of what I really wanted to do in life. So I disappeared for 2 years. I did a backpacking trip from the center of Mexico to the south of Mexico, uh, like catching rides with these truck drivers, doing drugs all the time. for several days. It was a crazy experience. Then I moved from Mexico into Central America. I visited or hitchhiked and took buses for around 5 different countries and many cities, small towns. And then I took a sailboat from Panama to Colombia. So the whole trip lasted 2 years, the backpacking trip, just to clear my mind. I dropped climbing during that period. You know, for 2 years, I didn't climb at all. I just had so much noise in my head because I knew that I was going to be a failure as an engineer. Because my grades in school and college were one thing, but in the real world, I knew I was going to be a failure because I wasn't passionate about it, you know? Like, I hated it. I just did it because I wanted to make my parents happy. After those 2 years of backpacking, I went back home to my parents' house. And I basically told them that I didn't want to be an engineer. So I started applying to different restaurants because I love cooking. This is so weird. It's such a weird story. But I started applying for a job in a restaurant, and college that I graduated from gave me like a temporary job. I clearly remember it was like a $35 per every 2 weeks of work. So it was $70 per month. And I went there and cooked for like 6 hours. I was like a sous chef, like the guy that helps the chef. And I just hated it. It was so much work and the pay was like nothing. They just make me hate restaurants and cooking for a while. So I just that idea off and start looking for an engineering job. I got a engineering job in this big company, the one that owns Coca-Cola in all of Latin America and different breweries. It's a big corporate. So I worked for them 3 years. The pay was really good, like super good. I climbed a few positions in the corporate ladder, but I was very unhappy all the time, you know. I had money and it was weird. I was so unhappy. It's so weird. Like we think money is gonna give us happiness and the things we buy with it are gonna give us happiness, but it's so temporary. It just like flies away. It fades. Like it's cheap happiness. I would say it's cheap dopamine. After 3 years, I gathered enough courage and strength to just like quit that job for good and started teaching, like giving classes. I was really afraid. I had some savings, but at the beginning, I was unemployed for 5-6 months with no students. And then I will have a few students for a couple of months. Then I will have another 4 or 5 months without working and no students. Those were hard times. It was like 8 years ago. And I just knew that there was no going back this time, you know, like I was like, I'm done with being an engineer and I'm done with being unhappy. Like, I'm just gonna be a climber and be an instructor, be a mentor for the rest of my life. It doesn't matter what I do. Like, this is what I really feel passionate about. And there was no way back, you know. Since the day I quit that company, I was like, okay, now it's for real. And finally, my parents understood that I was really unhappy. That's when they make like I will say a change in the way they thought about us, their children, their kids, because they always thought that the path of college and working for a company was the only way to make a living. But now the world has changed so much, you know, like I don't even think we need a college preparation or a degree anymore. Like you can learn anything online. You can take online classes, online courses, certifications, and you can make your own degree, you know, based on what you're passionate about. Uh, but back then, my parents didn't see this as a way of living. Um, I don't have any like proper formation as a rock climbing instructor. It's just experience. It's just life experience that I'm applying and learning from different professionals. And nowadays you can make a living of whatever you want to do, whatever you want, like, do in life. I don't know what to say. Like, you don't need college anymore. Not for the way the world is changing. I'm glad to see this change and be part of it, of the people that can make a living with our passions and just form like a certain degree in life, or preparing the things you're passionate about and just do your own path. Now we have that power with technology.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And so I've been a college professor. I was an assistant professor, which is like, um, entry level for a full-time job as a college professor. I did that at two different colleges, and I've taught at four different colleges. And I loved teaching. I mean, it was definitely my first passion as a career. I loved every single day of it. Every day I was a teacher, I never felt like I went to my job. I cared about all of my students. I was really hard. Like my students, a lot of them hated me because I was very, very hard. But at the end of the day, though, the institution was what drove me away from it, because it's not so very little of college education is about that learning experience for that individual student, and helping somebody find their way, helping somebody get stronger, and doing it themselves, like finding what their strengths
Yes.
are and working on it themselves. There's not much these, at least at this point in my experience, and I could be wrong, but not a lot of that college experience is about that anymore. A lot of it is It's about a lot of things that we're not going to get into in this conversation, but I do agree with you that as passionate as I was about it, and I loved college myself, that that landscape is changing, and there's probably going to be massive changes in that institution as a whole in the coming years. But that's boring. I want to talk more about your story because it's interesting. Um, how did you? So there was a point in this story where you were out like clearing the jungle, right? Like there's this area where you were out just cleaning up boulders and clearing trees. How did that part of your story happen?
We call it developing, like developing new climbing areas. Like we go out and explore. Not all climbers do this, but we go out and explore. Maybe through Google Earth, we see like rock formations in certain area, and we just go explore and see if it's a private land or private property. So you try to get permissions to walk and explore. Then you talk to the locals to see if rock climbing is allowed, or if they will allow climbers to go there. So that's the beginning of the developing process. After you explore, you try to see if the rock is strong enough to like climb it. And that's when you start the cleaning process that you were mentioning. No, you rappel with a rope, like you descend, and you inspect the rock to see how strong it is. Uh, Maybe you retired like loose flakes from the rock, whatever imperfections that might be dangerous for the climber, like you clear them out. That's the cleaning process, we call it. Or maybe a little moss or dirt, like you brush it off. um, that's the cleaning process or the developing process, and that's what I mostly do, or what I've been doing for most of my career, like to adapt new areas for climbers of all levels. Uh, we don't get paid to do this. It's a lot of time, energy, and money invested. We do it because we're passionate about it. But to be honest, in a selfish way, I do it because I want to provide myself with new experiences. Uh, Most climbers go and repeat climbs that are already established, but I like to create like new climbs for myself, like go explore virgin areas, virgin rocks, and just do new climbs, like new movement. In a selfish and honest way, I do it for myself. like these experiences give me purpose, give me satisfaction, give me happiness. Even though it's not permanent happiness, it makes me really, really passionate to like develop a new area, a new piece of rock. I just see it like a nature canvas uh, uh, where I can express myself. So to be honest, yes, I do it in a selfish way, but it helps the purpose to other climbers. Let's say once I establish these climbs, more climbers can enjoy it. They can go to these places, and maybe they can hire locals to cook for them, or set up a camping place, or maybe chop wood for them to spend the night. So it's also a way to make the economy growth in a micro scale, like of these remote rural areas. It's also my plan. I go to areas that need development or maybe a growth in economy. So I try to pull climbers into these new areas to help other people grow, like poor people, let's say. Mostly it's poor people in Mexico, I guess in the States and other areas as well, that live in these remote areas, rural areas, or countryside areas, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, so you're even though it sounds like you feel a little bit guilty for getting your enjoyment out of that experience, because clearly it's an intense, passionate experience for you. But you're also you're teaching people in this way, right? You're a mentor, and your students are going with you to these places that you've discovered, these places that you've gone into something that was rough and wild, and you carved away all the unnecessary parts of it, and you transformed it into something useful and pleasurable for other people. And you've people follow you in there, right? Your students can go in and enjoy those experiences also.
Yes, exactly. And what I try to do also, once a year, I make a workshop, really, really small workshop, like in between 12 and 14 people. But I try to educate my students or the people that attend these workshops in these areas that I have developed or set up for climbing. I try to educate them, and how we as climbers are privileged, how we should use that privilege to make the life of other people better, and also how to respect the environment, because climbing, like any other human activity, uh, has an impact, like to clean certain piece of rock, we retire moss, dirt, maybe certain plants, maybe we will alteration to the natural balance of certain species or plants. So yeah, climbing is not like this pure endeavor. It has a big impact. So I try to educate students on that so they can pass on that philosophy and values that I like to live by. It's just not climbing, it's just how we can be better humans and use climbing and that privilege we have to make other people's lives better. That's basically what the Secret Brush Society brand and my collective and Luis Cajero embodies. It's just not climbing, it's something else. I try to make a change in the way people think and approach these rural areas, because we have a problem now in the climbing industry. This is worldwide. The rhythm, the climbing gyms are creating new climbers, overpassing the way we are trying to educate, or the rhythm. There's too many climbers now per day, and we cannot educate them all in how to make the transition from like a indoor climbing gym to the outdoors. So we're seeing a lot of impact in the outdoors, lots of access issues, lots of bannings, lots of trash, graffitis, so many like negative impacts that basically are just coming out of the climbing gyms, because the climbing gym do care about creating new climbers, but they don't care about educating them. So that's where my mission and purpose comes, to try to educate these few climbers so they can spread the word or philosophy or the values that I like to live by and that I like to teach through the Secret Brush Society Collective. And basically is that, make an impact in the climbing community. I know it's small and that I won't be able to do it by myself, but I like to see it as my legacy. Like if I can impact 14 people per year, and if one of those 14 people can impact another 10, then it's just gonna grow, exponentially grow. But it has to start somewhere. So that's, I think, my main purpose, to make an impact in the world and in the life of people that are not as privileged as me through climbing.
Yeah, well, there's something very primitive and natural about climbing. I mean, it's obviously much older than even our species, and certainly something that we have been doing as long as we've been on this planet. Especially the bouldering and the sort of things that you do. I mean, that's got it. I'm sure that was just part of daily life for a large portion of humanity for a very, very long time in our history. And so it's interesting to me that you've multiple times now you've talked about how you feel like you've got this um you feel like the like this world that you're in is like a natural canvas and that you're out there participating with it. Does this way of life feel like a strong connection to nature for you personally?
Yes, yes, it does. It does. Now that you say it, like if we think of the first humans, like they will have to climb maybe into a cave to hide or to find shelter, from animals, from a thunderstorm, or maybe to gather food, they will have to climb trees. So yes, I do feel like I'm connected to my roots, or to our roots are humans. I also feel like connected to the first things we do as babies, like you start crawling and then you start trying to climb things before you can even walk. So I don't know, it's a very primal activity, I will say. Whatever is primal, feel grows or instinct. And whatever is instinct is connected directly to nature. Like there's no rational or mental process about it. It's just instinct. It's in our genes. I'm not saying that everyone has to climb, but I do feel connected to nature. It's very primal. It's very instinctive. Uh, Climbing is just that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and when you're in the act of course, I've only been to gyms. I have not grabbed a hold of real rocks in my life, but I do know that um my own feeling with it was always in that exact moment there was not a whole lot to think about besides if I'm going to be able to hold myself up or if I'm going to fall. And there are so many moments where it's intensely uncomfortable and there's fear involved, even though, I was never in any real danger whenever I did it. But still, you have when you're 12 or 15 feet in the air and you're hanging on by your fingertips and you feel you have that question in your mind of can I hold on or not, you're you really have a presence of mind. You're present in the moment in a way that it's not easy to attain in other activities. And so I can just imagine you out there in the middle of nowhere in the wild countryside of Mexico, hanging off the side of a rock with a giant crack in it. You know, you got the long hair and the tattoos and the whole like yeah, a little bit of a primitive presence about you, you know, when you're hanging off of that rock. I can totally see you just sort of like losing yourself and doing something that's been happening for eons and being totally connected to that.
Yes, yes. Uh, what you just said is very important. Uh, I'm pretty sure there are many sports and activities that demand presence, you know, to be fully in a moment, not in the past, not in the future. And climbing for sure is one of them. But then you add this extra ingredient that you're not sitting like in a lot of position meditating, like you're actually doing an active meditation, you know. And at the same time, you can do climbing as dangerous as you want, but at the same time, you always have like this threat, like this fear that your life is at risk. Uh, Even though climbing is pretty safe, you can do it as safely as you want, but you can do it also as bold as you want, which sometimes I do. Uh, I'm not saying, and this is not something I try to teach my students. Every other year, I like to like put my life in risk, like to know that I can die in the moment. Uh, I'm not saying it's suicidal. It's just something very personal that demands like self trust, self confidence, and I like to put myself in these situations where I have to climb for my life. You know, like no ropes, no mats, no nothing. But these are climbs that I rehearse for several months with a rope, and then I just go and do them like people see them in the documentary Free Solo, like Alex Honnold climbing El Capitan. Uh, you don't need to climb El Capitan to expose your life. Maybe with 60 feet or 70 feet tall of climbing or whatever rock is about that height, you can expose yourself to that. You know, it doesn't have to be El Capitan of 900 feet, whatever, 3,000 feet, whatever. So yes, uh, climbing demands presence, you know, but at the same time, fear is there, and you have to control these emotions, these thoughts, so your body can perform, you know. So I don't want to talk too much about climbing, but yeah, it's a really nourishing activity and sport and way of life, I will say. So yeah, hopefully people listening to this will try it even in a gym as a first approach, and then they will see what we're talking about. You know how rich and how beautiful climbing is.
Yeah, well, I think anytime somebody's developed a skill, they want to test themselves. I think that's well, maybe that's too broad of a statement, but I think there's a certain mindset that when you get good at something, you can feel yourself improve. When you feel your strength, you naturally want to test your strength. And with certain things that we're able to do in life where you know, life and death can hang in the balance, that's the ultimate test. And also, you know, at the point of birth and the point of death, those are the two moments when we're closest to the natural world as human beings. And so I sense about you this sort of instinctive drive to go blur that line between yourself and the greater natural world around you. And so I think it's very profound that you have that need to go out and feel that experience. I'm sure it's very intense and very invigorating for you to go out and have those climbs that have risk and have real consequences associated with them. But you were injured not too long ago. We haven't discussed the details of your injury, but I saw that you were injured. Was that a climbing injury?
Yeah, it's weird. Like it happened in a climbing gym. Just,
Oh man.
yeah, just like 7 feet off the ground. And it's weird how life unfolds sometimes, you know. Um, like I have risked my life many, many times over these 24 years of career. and I get the worst injury in a climbing gym in a controlled environment, But I don't know. Twisted my ankle, and I basically ripped off 4 ligaments from my bones. So at the beginning, they wanted to do surgery to reattach them, but I found a really good doctor and specialist with feet, and he basically told me like, "Oh, you look strong. Like, let's try to do it without surgery. Let's see how the foot evolves." So basically, it's been 6 months now since the accident. Have the ligaments, like they will surgery to reattach them, but my body like formed this fibrosis around the damaged areas where those ligaments are missing, and the fibrosis is really strong. Like my foot stable is just very rigid now. So I'm in the work process now of making it flexible, movable again. It's right now I'm moving my feet as we speak, doing therapy, manual therapy. So yeah, I've been away from climbing almost 6 months. Now I'm getting back to it slowly. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm seeing the specialist. He's taking another extra X-rays. I have to be in appointments every month just to see how we're progressive with the injury, and hopefully I can skip surgery for good. We're still in the process of healing my foot for another 4 or 5 months, but I'm getting back to climbing slowly. Last 6 months have been a nightmare in my life, but I have learned a lot. There's no learning and there's no improvement in life. There's no transformation without severe pain, like not only physical pain. Like you have to go through mental and emotional pain to evolve. I will say that's the word, to evolve. So I'm in that process now. It is not over yet, but yeah, I will say I'm in that process of my life now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's a powerful, powerful idea. There's a really famous Carl Jung quote that says, "Where your fear is, there is your task." And it's it's interesting to hear you talk about that idea that you have to suffer in order to grow. I mean, that's something that I believe in. Obviously, that's a stoic idea that I put into the writing on GFDA pretty frequently. And a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people don't like the idea of it. And a lot of people reject that idea, especially on social media, because when you spend a lot of your time online, you kind of get lulled into this false belief that you can avoid things that you don't like, and that there's like there's an easy path to getting things and growing and having a pleasant life. Somewhere there's an easy path to that if you just expose yourself to the right things. And it's not true. I mean, you can go through life that way, but you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer one way or the other. And the challenge of life is what you do with that suffering. That's what you're called. That's where you discover yourself, is what you do with it. And like, you're such a strong person, you're physically strong. For decades now, you've developed your body, you've developed your technical skill. You have verifiable power in doing something that you love and you're passionate about. But you're also emotionally strong because you went and you made a hard decision in life to turn away from what was comfortable and predictable to go and do something that is dangerous and uncertain and not going to be very accommodating to you, that you have to go carve your own path through. That's emotional and psychological strength. And even in spite of all of that, life still delivered you something that knocked you down. Even as strong as you were, life still found something to hurt you with. And totally that's a life lesson. That's an absolute life lesson. And I really hope people will pay attention to what you said, that you've, I don't know if embracing it is the right word, because nobody wants to embrace some of the things that you've been through, but you have to be honest about it, and you have to let it run its course, and you have to watch yourself and be conscious of how you're changing, and you have to make sure you're facing in the right direction so you can change in healthy ways, I think.
Yeah, I guess the word maybe looking for simple is accepting.
Yeah.
If you're gonna put your heart on something, a job, an activity, a relationship, you have to know that the moment you put your heart on that thing, that activity, that person, your heart is gonna get hurt.
Mm, yeah.
You know, it's gonna be broken down to pieces in some moment. Um, as you said it, life is gonna find to hurt you, to make you go through pain. And I guess it's up to you whether you want to suffer or not. The pain will be there, the lesson will be there. These lessons come uh, with great pain, I will say, but depends on you. And that's when the mental strength comes and plays its part. It depends on you how long you want to stay in that suffering stage, you know, because that is optional, it's not mandatory. The pain is necessary for the lesson. I'm still going through physical pain and emotional pain, but I'm not suffering anymore, you know? And I just found another purpose on this rehab process, like this reinvention process. Like I have to become a better human, a better climbing out of this, even though my food will never be the same. It won't recover to its 100%. The doctors have told me, you know, that I have to make something better out of it, even though it won't be functioning at its fullest. Uh, and I guess life is like that, you know. If you put your heart into something, it's gonna get broken into pieces sooner or later, and you just have to put it back. It's like this Japanese philosophy of way of doing things, the kintsugi, you know, how a pot breaks. They try to put together with glue and gold, and it has a story to tell. I see this process as that, you know, like a kintsugi. Like I have to put myself back. Uh, I won't be the same perfect pot as before, but I will get back together, you know, and I will have a story to tell after this. Uh, this accident won't make me less of a climber. Now my challenge is to become a better climber after this, like to renew myself in different ways, not only physically but mentally and spiritually. And that's the process basically I'm going through. And I remember we talked over the emails like over a month ago. The day my accident happened, it was my mom's birthday, her 70th birthday, and it was the same day of her birthday that I had the accident. I traveled all the way from this town I live at in a mountain. I traveled to this big city where my parents live. We had lunch with my mom and everything, and then afterwards I went climbing to a climbing gym I used to work for many years ago, and that's when the accident happened. I see it at the moment. Now I see it, but basically, I don't know who coordinates this. If it's God or destiny, I think it's both. Maybe even one part of ourselves coordinates these things. Um, but that was like a big intermezzo, like in classical music they call it, or a pause in life, like a break. I couldn't see that life was demanding of me, you know? My mom was pretty sick back then. Sorry, this breaks my voice. But anyway, my mom was very sick back then. and I couldn't see it, you know. And I guess life like imposed this break so I could like stop climbing and just focus on my mom, you know. And I saw it after several months, but yeah, my accident was like a red flag that life was giving me like, hey, pay attention, your mom is sick, you know. So yeah, basically my accident, I see it as a gift now, you know. Demanded attention for me from a higher level. It wasn't even that my mom was calling for my attention, like a higher level God, because I do believe God exists, was calling for my attention. So he had to take climbing away from me, you know. That was the only way like I could pay attention to what was going on in my family's life, my mom's life. So yeah, sorry for that. There's still a lot of pain. My mom died 2 months ago. She was a big smoker, like she smoked every day. She was sick. Um, and yeah, basically the cigarettes took her away from me. She's still there in some other form, but yeah, the accident, my mom, everything, I clearly saw that this was a message from God. Like he was trying to drag my attention to spend the last few months of life from my mom with her. So yeah, climbing is not relevant at this point, you know. Um, the lesson is what it's important right now. So yeah, we can talk more about that if you want. Um, I think climbing took a backseat in my life now.
Yeah, well, there are so many things to say in response to that, but at the same time, there's really nothing to say in response to it because it's so deeply profound. And in our emails, I told you that my mom passed away a couple months before your mom did, and she died from cancer, and she had a prolonged death, and it was really, really bad. And I took care of her every single day from the moment that she got her diagnosis. And you were telling me that you were by your mom's side whenever she was sick, and that your mom was really, really important to you in your life. And your mom obviously made a ton of sacrifices for you to pass life on to you and to give you the best in life and to hold you up so that you would live well. And and you did live well. You took something in life that you loved and you went into it, and you grew yourself through the process, and you went through hard things and you got stronger with the thing that you love. And that's incredible, and it's deeply symbolic, and it's deeply important that you did that. And you got a pain now that will be with you for the rest of your life, but you found meaning in it. And that's why there's a certain purpose in life to finding meaning in the events of our lives. And what's so important is that whenever we suffer and whenever we go through things that are terrible, we have to transform it inside of ourselves. We've got to. You have to take the destruction and turn it into creation. It's a necessity for your soul to grow and for your soul to heal, is to create something better. And if you can create something that other people can use and that can lessen the suffering of other people on earth, or help other people get stronger, then you've got a wonderful life. And I think you got a wonderful life, man. I think you're an awesome person. And I'm I'm just I'm really grateful that you're able to share the benefit of the hard things that you went through, and that you're able to have the attitude that there's something greater behind it. I think it's just really incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate it a lot. It's been hard, when I wasn't a climber, like I will relate it to my mom's death now. I sucked at basketball, I sucked at soccer, like all the sports. I didn't even have a future. And the time I tried to convince my parents to buy me my first pair of climbing shoes, I remember my dad told me like, no, we're not spending any more money on you because like you try a sport for 6 months, then you drop it off, then you try another sport and you make us buy new clothes, new gear, and it's gonna happen the same with climbing. And my mom was the only one that believed that I was gonna be a climber. The bond and the love we had, my mom and I, it was really strong. Like she always supported me on this path of becoming a professional rock climber. Like she I don't know why, but she was the only one that knew that I was gonna make it. Like my siblings and my dad were like, I know you should like just commit to the engineering and work for a company and just have a safe income, monthly check. And my mom was the only one that will support any crazy dream that I had. I guess now the best I can do to honor my mom's death and support is just to become the best rock climber I can be, like try to reach that full potential that I know that I haven't reached because I get distracted so many times by the simplest things in life that I believe that's the best way I can honor her right now, just to like try to get my career back as a climber after this accident that I went through in her birthday. And I just remember she was really happy of seeing me as a fulfilled sorry, as a fulfilled person, and also as a fulfilled climber. And that's the best way I can honor her, not dropping climbing, just like get better at it after this accident. Uh, it sounds very simple, but mom's death is so fresh that the last thing I want to think about right now is climbing. There's so many inner issues that I'm working through that climbing, it does help in a mental and emotional way, also physical, but I don't think that's gonna bring me like the big transformation and evolution I'm looking for right now after my mom's death. Um, I'm not doing any drugs like depression drugs or whatever, because there's people that whenever it happens this, like nowadays, you go to the therapist and they will give you a pill, just to feel good and don't feel depressed, don't feel sad, to regulate these mental inner states. But I'm not taking any of that. Like I'm not looking for easy ways to come out of this. I believe this is a gift also. Death is a gift. My mom's death is a gift. Even though it's grabbed in a weird way, I have to find a way to open it, and to make something useful out of it, to incorporate it in my life. So yeah, I'm dealing with it without drugs, without anything, to make it easier. I'm just respecting the process, whatever time it takes. But I know something good will come out of this. I'm pretty sure.
Well, you're taking a pill, but you're taking a much bigger pill that's a lot harder to swallow. You're taking the pill of life experience and looking into a difficult life experience honestly and accepting what it's going to give to you. And man, it's if you're a man, your mother is the only thing on planet Earth that's a part of you, really and truly. I think I'm not a father, but even for men, if you when you create life, yeah, your kids are a part of you, but you're physically were a part of your mother. She's a part of your bodies are a part of each other. And nobody's going to love you like your mom. Nobody. And even everybody's got their own problems, but sometimes people have severe emotional problems, and sometimes those relationships aren't perfectly healthy. My relationship with my mom wasn't perfectly healthy because of some personal problems, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that that was a part of me, and it's no longer on earth anymore. And there's a sense of loneliness that comes from that you'll never feel from anything else. And it's I felt the same way in the process that I went through of healing that you did, that I didn't I don't drink a whole lot, but I hardly drink at all since that time, like even recreationally or socially. I really put away a lot of the little distractions in my life from that period, and I really began to spend time with myself. And I know for me, it was like I started going to the gym. I've done gone to the gym, for years. I've always sort of done something physical, but in this period of these past, 7 months, whatever it's been, it's like I go to the gym almost every day, and I just really try to have tangible experiences in life. I try to do things that are difficult. I try to not look away from anything since that's happened, because everything feels there's a little bit of pain in everything uh, through this process. Everything, every thought, every activity, every interaction with another person in the mind has a path to it that will lead back to the personal pain that you're going through when you're dealing something with something like this. And I think that the more we trod those paths, the more conditioned we become to bear that pain, and we become stronger. And I don't know what I'm doing with it any better than you do. You're it's still fresh for you, and you don't know what you're going to turn it into, but you definitely feel more connected to your life ambitions, and you feel an obligation to go out there and be better and be stronger, and to prove your mother's faith in you was well placed. And I know you will. I mean, it's obvious that you will. And
Thank you.
I encourage you. I encourage you in that so much, man. It's like Lewis, you've opened yourself up to the divine. That's what you have done in every aspect of your life. You were willing to let go of material pleasures. You were willing to let go of security, and you were willing to become physically connected to a natural world. And there is God. God is present in that experience. It's not about religion. It's about the divinity of the way we live our lives. And it's so obvious, man. It's so obvious in the way you talk and the way you look at your life, that you're really special and you've connected to something very powerful.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that. I appreciate it. Ah, we, we both can share this experience because you went through the same thing with your mom. For my mom, I will say the last 2 weeks of her life were the toughest ones, and the ones that I basically lived next to her, because I had like a small sofa or couch next to the intensive care unit in the hospital. So I lived there for 14 days next to my mom. And every day they will allow me to see her 3 times per day, 30 minutes per visit. So that hour and a half per day, see that, I don't know how you saw it and how it changed your perspective in life. But I also feel like my mom, without her knowing, she gave me that gift of like knowing that day by day, like look that in the face. Um, that changed you a lot. Even though we will have this pain, this loneliness. I will say like this emptiness, like it just goes from your chest to your back. That's how I feel it, like an emptiness, like a big hole in the center of my body. I guess you learn to live with it. It doesn't go away. It doesn't close itself. You just learn to live with it. But what truly changed me was this gift of seeing that day by day, because that's a strong reminder of what are you doing with your life, like that can fall on us like any day. Like you don't have to be a smoker like my mom to see that develop year by year by year, running out of breath, running out of oxygen. Like you can have I don't know, like a heart attack, let's say. You can be walking down the street, just cross the street, driver can run you over. Like we think we have granted life till we're gonna become old people, and it's not like that, And I think that's the best gift my mom gave me, to see that just in the face day by day and just question myself, like, what am I doing with my life? So that just gave me like this big momentum and motivation to do big changes, to not fool around, to not distract myself too much, to focus my energy and my attention just to certain tasks over the day, over the weeks, over the months that I want to accomplish. Um, After my accident, my mom's death, like I just unplugged for social media for a while, I used to base my perception of worthiness based on reactions of people on my latest climbing video, on my latest post or words or whatever. Um, Part of me felt committed to post for my sponsorships, But when I had the accident, like none of my sponsors paid for my accident. Uh, who truly was there to back me up was my family, my mom, my dad, my siblings, some close friends. Uh, so I didn't feel the need to post anymore. I didn't owe anyone anything, Like I realized that the biggest and most important people in my life were my family. And I was just looking somewhere else. Like sponsors, sorry to say this, but they didn't know much about it. I don't know if they really care about my accident. Just a few of them reach out to me to see how they can help me. As I told before, I don't get paid to climb. I have to make my own money with my own brand. And when my mom died, no one reached out to me. So I just didn't feel like the digital world out there deserved me or deserved my attention. I don't know if this happened with you, but eliminated all the things that were distractions. I still have social media. I eventually post on it, but not that much anymore. But I just realized what things were truly important in life. Like you say, myself, I go to the gym now. Like that energy should be invested in my health, in my body, not anywhere else. Maybe invested in GFDA, which is your main income, maybe, I just realized that a lot of my friendships were empty friendships. A lot of my connections were fake. And that was another gift. I will say my accident and my mom's that left me to take off that cover I had in my eyes of or relationships that I thought were real and important. And I just realized like 99% of them were fake, So even though I have always been honest with my relationships and real, I just realized many people were along the ride as long as it was fun and as long as I had something valuable for them. But sorry, but when shit hit the fan, and when I was in a dark spot in my life, like all those friendships just like walked away, and it was hard to find out that, but it was also liberating and eye opening. So I'm grateful for that. I don't know if it happened the same with you and your mom's death. It will be interesting to hear it.
Well, yeah, it's what happens is part of you dies and you realize, oh, I'm going to die. I mean, you know you're going to die someday, but when you go through that experience, it just becomes, it hits you in the face like a truck that, especially if you watch your mom die in a bad way, which both of us did. Um, it hits you in the face and you have to stop and say, like, okay, how much time do I have? What am I going to do with it? And you're 100% right. Like, I didn't even really know why I was going to the gym. I just knew I needed to like really start focusing on it seriously, where I just sort of did it half-assed before. And you're absolutely right, is that like I can look at it now and say what I was thinking was, I have life in my body and it's limited, and I need to go, but I need to get strong. I need to feel my life as much as I possibly can. I need to feel my life every minute of it that I can feel. I need to like touch it. And for me, I'm a writer. That's my passion. It's the thing that I'm really good at. It's the thing that people, thousands and thousands of people, appreciate that I do. And it's, as a writer, I just totally like, it gave me a lot of clarity as a writer. Like, a lot of the bullshit that I worked through in my head, a lot of the time that it held me back, a lot of that sort of has dissipated since then, because I'm not easily distracted. And I definitely got a sense of, almost immediately, I got a sense of how much of my time on social media was just a total waste, and how artificial all of it is. I mean, even with people that I am closely connected to, and that I feel like I have genuine relationships with, even when they go through social media, for some reason it like devalued it quite a lot to me. And so yeah, everything you talk about, I can totally relate to all of the thoughts and the feelings that you went through. But what, it's here's what happens though, is that people who are confronted with the fact that life is finite and short, they're going to go one of two directions. Well, one of three directions. Either they're just going to ignore it and continue to, be distracted by whatever they can put in front of their faces, or whatever that substance they can put in their bodies. Or they're either going to say, well, life is short, so it's all pointless. Why do anything? Because I'm just going to die. Or they're going to say, life is short. I need to do as much as I possibly can, because I'm going to die. And I don't know which way is right. I'm not trying to judge anybody who comes out of this terrible experience. I can't judge how somebody takes it, because I damn sure have not been good at a lot of times. But I, I just hope people will look at it and say, I want to do something, because life is meaningful. Like, there is meaning to life. Yeah, it is terrible and horrible at times, but it's also beautiful. It really is beautiful. And it's life is a beautiful experience that's made of many small horrors. And it's that transformation that we go through in horrible things that makes us more beautiful. It is the gold between the broken pieces. And that's deeply profound. And everybody's got to find it for themselves, though. I believe that everybody's got to go have the experience and find it for themselves. And so, I hope anybody listening, I hope you don't hide from that pain. I hope you go out and look at it honestly.
Yes, yes. Um, I always thought that no matter way you take in life, of these three that you mentioned, I agree. No matter what way you take, Like you cannot run out of these painful experiences, you know? Like you said, everyone's gonna die. Like my biggest fear was to lose a family member. Uh, this is the first time I lose someone from my family. And my biggest fear was to lose my mom first, you know? That was my biggest fear. Um, if you avoid the things you avoid in life, they're gonna find a way to find you. You know, like if you don't deal with them, and if you don't come to terms with them, or if you're not at peace with them, if you don't accept them, they're gonna be forced into your life. Whatever you're hiding from, whatever you're running from. That's a big lesson I learned out of this, you know? So it doesn't matter what way in life you take. Um, the lessons are gonna reach us one way or another. And what I do believe about life is that we are meant to go through these painful experiences, these lessons, and we should become better humans out of them, you know? Because, yeah, life is about trying to reach happiness every day. It's something you have to build every day. It's not something you attain and you stay in that state of happiness forever. That's a lie, you know? Happiness is something you have to work for every day. And there are days that I don't want to work for my happiness, to be honest. There are days that I don't want to wake up from bed and that I just want to maybe kill my time looking at the cell phone, looking at a TV show, uh, maybe cooking, and maybe I want to be sad that day. And it's okay to have days like that. There are days where you don't want to work for your happiness. Uh, Happiness is not permanent. It's something you have to work for every day, I believe. And these lessons are gonna show up either every day or every other week, or maybe you'll have a few months of happiness, constant happiness, and then something hard is gonna just show up. But I do believe that part of us, these painful experiences, and I also believe there's a God choosing which experiences we are ready to go through or to live. You know, I don't believe that these events just show up out of nowhere. I do believe that show up when we are ready to live them. You know, to learn from them, to go through that pain. So it doesn't matter what way we take on life. The cheap dopamine life of just seeking pleasures and stimulus, or maybe a more spiritual way of life, or maybe a more meaningful way of life and using our skills and purpose to change other people's lives or improve them. Doesn't matter what way we take, I believe the lessons are gonna show up. It's up to us what we do with them. And I do believe that the biggest purpose in life is just to leave this plane, this physical plane, as evolved or as improved as we can, you know? Since the day we were born till the day we die, just leave it uh, in the best way possible we can, you know? Uh, I don't know. That's what I believe. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but that's what I believe.
Yeah, there's when you talk about the idea that the um when you talk about the fact that it's going to come and find you one way or the other, like that's an absolute truth, and it's something that we all have to accept. So if you look at the story of Odysseus from the Odyssey and from the Iliad, but and actually this is probably in the Iliad, but anyway, so Odysseus is one of the classic Greek heroes, and he Odysseus was an archetype for like every man. And Odysseus was he wasn't granted like superhuman strength. He wasn't granted any sort of magical powers. Odysseus' gift from the gods was that he was intelligent and he was clever. Like he's described in the Odyssey as a man of many twists and turns. And when when we're introduced to Odysseus, he has a farm and a wife, and he's got a normal life, and he's content with his life. But a war is being started by a king who knows Odysseus. I think the king's name is Agamemnon. Don't quote me on that. But a war is being started, and it's a pointless war over pride and lust, basically. And so the king sends his messengers to Odysseus and says, "Hey, we're going to war. You're going to be a general in my war." Odysseus is like, "No, I'm not. I don't believe in your war. I'm happy at home. I'm going to stay at home." And because Odysseus is clever, what he tries to do is convince the guard. He tries to convince the messengers that he's insane, and he sows salt into his fields to show them that he's insane. And if you sow salt into a field, it's going to kill the field. Nothing can grow in the soil whenever he sows the salt into it. So he would be ruining his livelihood by doing that. And ultimately, it doesn't work, and he gets dragged out to this war where he's got to apply his wits as best he can, and he's got to fight as best he can, and then he's got to find his way home through lots of trials and tribulations. And so, being called to war and fighting the war, that's the Iliad, and finding his way back home, back to his wife and to his family, that's the Odyssey. And the reason those are symbolic stories is because Odysseus is called to go out and do this miserable thing that he doesn't want to do, and he doesn't think he's supposed to go do it, but he can't escape it. And if as he tries to escape it, all he's doing is hurting himself by sowing salt into his fields. So but even that's not going to work. He has to go out and face this thing. This is the worst thing he can imagine doing. And the whole time he's facing it, he's got his home in his heart, and that's what he's connected to. Like in Odysseus's his bedroom, his bed with his wife, it's made on a giant stump of an olive tree. So a giant olive tree stump, and they made their bed on it, and it's referred to as the rooted bed because that's his family. That's the beginning of his life, and home is connected to the earth through the rooted bed. And that's that there's of course that's a very ancient story, and the meaning of it has been explored by people for as long as the story has existed. But we live that story in our own lives, and that's why the story is meaningful. And I had some similar experiences to you. I won't go into my story, but when you talk about how like you were called to go to climb, right? And it was an antithesis to what your family wanted. It was an antithesis to the path that was laid out for you in life that you were supposed to go do. And you went and you followed that path, and you you had to be ripped out of that painfully in order to find yourself and reconnect with your family and to learn this lesson of what's really valuable. Like that thing that you love the most, it had to be taken away from you in order for you to understand you got to fight your way back to it. That you have to go through really difficult things in order to fully appreciate it. And it's it's a terrible thing. I mean, it's a terrible thing that you had to go through that. It's absolutely we just wish we could not do it so much. We wish we could find an easy way to learn those lessons, but we can't. And yeah, I agree. The purpose is to make something beautiful out of it. It absolutely is. But I want to talk about I want to talk about what you make out of it, and I want to talk more about your perspective as a teacher and a mentor, because to me that's the real beautiful thing that you do, is like connecting all these other people to the thing that you love and helping to change their perspectives and helping them get stronger. Tell me a little bit about the calling you felt to do that.
It was a great insight and great story. For that, it just made me think a lot. And regarding the mentorship, I started as an instructor. I just felt what I knew and the experience I gained over these years, 24 years, that I couldn't keep it for myself. It would have been selfish. I just felt this big pull and desire to share it. I don't have kids. I'm not married. I don't even know if I'll ever have kids. I don't believe my purpose in life is to have kids. That's just me. I believe my legacy, it's all these new climbing areas that I develop for current and future generations so they can find purpose through climbing. And I also believe that the students I have will be kind of my legacy, because they will transmit whatever values and philosophy I'm trying to pass on to them. I like to improve people's lives, as I told you, I believe I'm in a privileged position. I'm not saying I'm rich, but I do have my main necessities solved out, Like, I don't have to worry about where to sleep, where to eat, how to have fun or entertain myself. I don't have to worry about my clothes, like food, shelter, whatever. All of those needs are covered, So I'm in a privileged situation, and I do believe that my responsibility as a human, as a person, as a citizen, is to share that privilege. And sometimes that privilege is knowledge, is experience, not necessarily money or goods. It can be knowledge, and I like to share that, to pass it on, because I do believe that's the way to become immortal, to keep that legacy going on, even though at some point, maybe in 50, 100 years, no one will know certain knowledge came out from me. I don't care about that, because that's the ego speaking. I just want to transmit my life experiences or my experience in this sport and give it to other people so they find it valuable and they pass it on to more generations. That's my main purpose of teaching, being a climbing instructor, a guide, a mentor, whatever you want to call it. So that's my main drive, to leave a legacy, and to make the world a little bit better, to change people's life for the better, Um, we have a nutritionist, is that the word?
Yeah.
In the collective, in the brand. We also help people how to change their eating habits so they can become better athletes, so they can have better results in climbing. So I do believe that whatever we put in our stomach is also a way of self-esteem, if you can control that part of food and really nurture yourself, like really feed yourself in healthy ways, that's gonna affect positively another areas of your life. I do believe in that a lot. Whatever we put in comes out in other areas of our lives,
So do you the Secret Brush Society, is it open to people all over the world, or just people who are local to you?
No, it's open all over the world. I had students from different parts of the world, from the US. I had people weird places. Dubai. I had people in Europe, but it's mostly Mexican people. I believe because it's a Mexican brand, but yeah, I'm open to anyone. Mostly climbers, um, but my workshops are open for like any people. They don't have to be like climbers. I usually go to different cities. Sorry, every other year and just make workshops in climbing gyms. And what I try to teach in these workshops is self knowledge, through training, through climbing, through eating habits. And that's something that can make a positive impact in some other areas of your life, not necessarily climbing. It can be either in your relationships. So yeah, it's open to anyone. It's not for only Mexicans. So yeah, it's open.
Louis, what do you consider to be your greatest success in life?
To have quit that engineering job. I will say that's my biggest success. I was gonna be really unhappy if I would have kept on that way or that path in life. And it took me, as I told you, maybe 13, 14 years to gather that courage to just quit for good, to leave that comfort. I will say that was my biggest success because from that day, September 2012, I remember my life changed for good. And as I told you, there was no going back. Uh, I will say that's my biggest success. My life has improved a lot since then, you know?
Well, Louis, I know this conversation is going to have a major impact on a lot of people. And I'm really grateful that I'm grateful that, I don't even remember how we originally started talking to each other on Instagram, but I've always liked you. I've always seen what you put on Instagram. I was like, this guy's different, watching how you would go out and clean the woods, and you would talk about your mission with your climbing. I was always I really admired the way that you lived your life, and then we ended up talking a few times and became friends, and I'm so glad that we were able to connect in this way, and that you and I were both even if it had happened privately, that you and I were able to sort of share the pain of the loss that we've both experienced. And man, you got a beautiful soul. Seriously, like
Thank you, man.
you're welcome.
Thanks.
You're a special guy, Lewis, and I I know that all of the people in your life are blessed by your presence, and I know that your students must just have so much gratitude and respect for you because you are so genuine, and the the power you have in life is this honest connection with what you love, and this honest connection with nature, and this honest mission to help life be better for people and to do something positive. It's just you've made so many sacrifices for it. You live it every single day. You're going through a hard time right now where you're at one of those quiet, slow parts of life where some things are changing inside of you, but it's going to be stronger. It's going to come out so much stronger when you make your change and you go to the next stage. I can't wait to see what you do. Um, I'm just I'm really grateful that you spent some time talking today, and I know so many other people are going to be grateful too.
Thanks a lot. I'm just very happy of speaking with you, and also I'm just grateful that you give me this opportunity. I'm not a English native speaker. Is that the word?
Yeah, you've done great though,
So
man.
thanks, man. I just hope people find value in my story. I'm not saying that people should quit their jobs. their office jobs, definitely don't misunderstand me. But yeah, I'm not saying that this is the way to be happy. I'm just saying this is the way things unfolded for me in life. Because I was fooling myself. I knew since day two that I wanted to be a rock climber, but at the same time, I wanted to make my parents happy. So I didn't have the courage to follow my path, my heart, my purpose in life. But as I grew old, I gathered that courage. But anyway, I'm not saying the only way to be happy is to quit your job and just follow your heart. Is not as easy as that. Still not easy. I remember the first time we spoke over Instagram. It was the pandemic on 2020, and you guys posted one picture that I uploaded with a few words and text, asking people what was success, or how do they measure success in life. And you guys reposted me, and that's how I started talking to you via Instagram, and we became friends. And I still ask people that, in my workshops and with my students, what's, like you said, what's your biggest success in life, or what does it mean to be successful? I think it all boils down to that in life. What are your metrics, your values in life that make you feel comfortable with yourself and say, okay, yes, I feel accomplished, I feel successful. And what I want people to realize, that success doesn't have to do anything with money and social status. It doesn't even have to do with your job position and how powerful you are in the corporate ladder, or how many people you give orders to. You know, that's not success. That's not, I will say, true power. True power comes out money, and that social status and job status is taken away from you. That's when your real power shows up. All of that are just illusions. So we have to ask ourselves, what is success in our lives? People shouldn't quit their jobs like I did. Like, it's not the way, or it's not the only way to be happy, or to be successful in life. That's just the way it worked for me. But what it all boils down to is that we have to look for that inner power in life, not the artificial power that money gives us, a job position gives us, whatever role in society you have gives us. Because I used to think my worth as a person was only related to climbing. If I wasn't a professional rock climbing, I was no one in life. So when this accident happened to me, and climbing, the thing that I'm most passionate about, was taken away from me, I realized that climbing wasn't my true inner power. So I'm in the process of reinventing myself and connecting with my truly inner power, like real power, not illusional power that the society gives us, through a work, through your income, through your clothes. And that's just an illusion. So if my story is of value to someone, I will say, just try to look for an activity or a job. It can be a craft, if you like to write, then do writing as a way of earning your life and earn money. If you like painting, then do painting as a way to make a living. In my case, it was climbing, so I'm trying to make a living out of that. And when climbing was taken away from me, I still need to reconnect to what my true power is, you know? Uh, that's a big question, and maybe that's a task I will leave to anyone who is listening this or who will listen to this, to look for that inner power. It does has to do with God. Maybe if you find it through the religion, that's okay, but I think it goes beyond that, you know? uh, we're given life, I believe, find that inner power. People will say, oh, it's a purpose. Yeah, it has to do with purpose. But when you're stripped away from money, from the ones you love the most, from a job or a company that you like a lot, when you lose your love, like what's left of you? Like, how do you gather yourself up or pick up yourself from the ground from these pieces and you rebuild yourself? You need inner power for that, you know? Uh, and money is not going to give you that. No one's going to give you that. Like, if you don't know where that source of power comes from, you should be worried. Um, as I told you before, I had this huge fear of losing my mom. That was my biggest fear. And my second biggest fear was losing climbing. And both things gather at the same time. Probably it was God. I like to believe it was God to test myself and to ask me, where's your inner power? That's uh, that's my conclusion. I think, and I'm in that process of reconnecting with my inner power again.
You don't have to quit your job, but you do have to do the thing you're afraid of in life. Maybe that's something a little different from everybody. And it's an incredible message, Lewis. I have sincere gratitude to you that you share that message. It's deeply true. It's things that I've thought many years myself, and you put it beautifully. So, you were worried about your English skills before we had our call, and you have demonstrated you have demonstrated skill with language that even I am envious of to a certain degree, and I
Thank
make my
you.
living off of it. So, Lewis, the Secret Brush Society, I'm gonna put links to all of your stuff in the usual places, but what's the Secret Brush Society? What's the Instagram account?
Is secret dash dots or secret dot brush dot society, if I recall correctly. I'm so bad at it, but it's the only secret brush society, and you can reach out. I had people that come from the States, my area or the place that I climb at, and I also guide people there. So sometimes people that are not even climbers, they contact me because they want to see the place, or they want to do a hike, they want to climb a little bit. So feel free to contact me if you want to see a rural side of Mexico, outdoors. You want to learn how to climb. You don't have to be a climber, and I'll be happy to show anyone around. Like, I also offer that service, guiding service, like picking people from the airport, driving them around, like immersing them into the Mexican culture. And that's something I'm really passionate about. As I told you before, I wanted to be a cook, a chef. So I'm really passionate about introducing people to the local food, local scenery, and people just can feel free to contact me, through the Secret Brush Society Instagram or through my personal Instagram. They're both open profiles, so feel free to do so.
Excellent. Well, I have a feeling you're going to get a couple of messages about this. I know I definitely want to come down and get a tour from you. So we'll have to make that happen at some point. And you know, on top of all the other things that you have offered everybody, let's not forget that they're going to get a hell of a good conversation out of that visit as well. So,
Thank you.
I hope a lot of people are going to come down as a result of this. Well, Lewis, thank you again for the time and the lessons and the story and the power and the emotion that you've shared with us today. And thank you to everybody who has listened. We're glad that you joined us, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm really grateful with you guys as always. Very, very grateful.
All right. Take care, Lewis. Take care, everybody.